How's it going, guys? So today we're going to be tackling the Supreme project. This one, I think the biggest takeaway from this project will be one, how to do that projection, and two, how to play with rigid bodies if you're not familiar with them or don't play with them. This is a very good step into it because I did very minimal technical stuff. It's very simple here. So let's do it. Now, the first thing you're going to need is a model of a skateboard. Now, I ended up watching a tutorial on how to model a skateboard when I made this. I'm not about to do that here. It's not even really my tutorial. So to this Patreon post, I have attached the project file with the skateboard model inside of it. So go ahead and download that and I'll show you how to append it. So once you have it downloaded, we're gonna go to File, Append, and then it's gonna be down here. It's just gonna be called Skateboard Model. And then I'm gonna go here to Object and pick Plane 008 in this case. So he is all set and ready to go. So there's a few things we need to do to him to prepare it so we don't have to do extra work later. And one of those things is applying the material. Now in the last tutorial, I mentioned Polyhaven. I mentioned, ambient CG. I mentioned ambient CG, but while we're at it, go ahead and open up Polyhaven as well, because we're gonna pull some HDRIs from there. So pick a wood material, any wood. I like how it's already searched up for me. And just go ahead and pick one. Maybe I picked this one, wood 052. Any flat wood that you would expect to see at a just unpainted skateboard. Go ahead and pick that wood material and download that. So what we're gonna do now is we can go here and look at the UVs. It's already unwrapped. It looks great. And what we can do is head to shading and apply that really easily. So I'm going to click New, and then I'm going to hit Control T and open up the wood material. So for me, it's saved in the assets, and I'm going to pull in that color. So there we go. We have this. I'm going to go ahead and scale it by 1.5. And then I want to move it away so that we don't have these knots. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of those. And then here, I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees so the grain is going this direction. And I do like the way that looks. So we're just going to bring it like this. Cool. Now we have that. What I want to do is color this really quick. So we're going to get in a color ramp. And then on the black portions, we'll make it pure red because that is how Supreme does their branding. Let's see, does B-spline look good? Something like this, but even honestly, if we make it black, it'll probably also look pretty good. Yeah, that looks nice. That looks like a wooden skateboard that has red. I don't know. We're defying the laws of reality because it's 3D, so it's fine. So now we have this. What we're going to do is I'm just going to hit this guy, Shift Control D, and then we're going to click on that number, and let's go ahead and get in the roughness to non-color and plug that into roughness. So now we have our roughness. Looks really, really good. And we need to get a normal. So let's go ahead and pull that normal. So just pick any of them. Normal map. I think it's going to be a little bit crazy. That looks fine, though it's super glossy. This is something... Is this normal for it to look so glossy? Or is that a shadow? Oh, that's not gloss at all. That's some kind of shadow. Maybe this is something about normals that I have yet to learn. This could be a technical error on my part. Oh, okay, so he looks good now. Nice and bumpy. It's got a big scratch down the middle of it. So here we are, and I like to look at them in cycles with this to make sure it does look good. So here it looks much better. And we're going to be using cycles, so that problem is no longer evident. Perfectly nice looking skateboard. Now we can move on to rigid body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get a cube. I'm going to hit Tab and then hold down Control. And then that'll put the anchor point at the bottom so that now I can just go ahead and model this guy. This is going to be the thing that all the skateboards fall into. So we'll give it a kind of a tall wall. And then I'm going to delete this face. Maybe make it a little bit bigger and apply that scale. So let me show you how simple rigid bodies are with at least this particular kind of use case. So So let's make him a little bit smaller. So go ahead into the rigid bodies and go ahead and click on rigid body. Because this guy is just going to be a bucket in a sense, we're going to make him passive. And we're going to do mesh, which means just form it to the shape of this object. And then nothing's going to happen. So I'm going to click on the skateboard. Also click on rigid body. In this case, keep it active. Convex hull, we're actually going to use box. And you can see this box forming around the object. It is not perfect, but I found, and we can just test it here, if we do mesh, which forms it exactly, I think it just bounces around. Yeah, it does that. And to avoid having to get crazy technical, because this project doesn't really require precision, you can do box. And if we go and use box, he behaves perfectly because it's very simple. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead to the tilde key and then move him over here. And then Shift D, and I'm just going to get 4 of them. And then Shift D again, and you kind of get the idea what I'm doing right now. And duplicate that. And we can drop them just to make sure everything works. Perfect. So now I can just go ahead and highlight them. And then Shift D them down the line. So that's cool. And then just to give it variation when they fall, I'm going to hit Shift D and rotate them all. And then make sure they're up. Shift D, rotate, Shift D, and rotate. So now we can drop them all, and they're going to look just fine. What I can do now is make the walls of this a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to add in a force field, and that's going to give a little bit more variation to how these are falling. So I'm going to click on turbulence and give it a strength of like 500. That might be enough to really give it some interesting look. There we go. So way better. So just notice if you've never used them. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and delete the turbulence. And here's how they look when they fall now. Just right up and down. And then I'm going to bring that turbulence back. And now it really looks a little bit more natural with their falling. And you can now see all of them with their material. And I'm just going to go ahead, put that material on him too, even though we won't really see it. So what I'm going to do is, I don't know, maybe one more. Really depends on what your computer can handle. The more, the merrier. Now we're here. So I can go here, tilde key, and click on the top, get our camera, place the camera really nicely, and now we can go ahead and place in our Supreme logo. So just click on any one of these skateboards and head to the shading tab so we can create that projection. I'm going to just get a different HDRI here. So here it is, looks really awesome. And then what I can do now here in the material, we can get a mix shader. And then let's get another, hit Shift D and get another principled. And we're going to keep this one white. And that's going to be the color of the Supreme text. So I'm going to go here, get in a color ramp. And again, go ahead and download the Supreme logo. I'm going to show you guys what I did. So I'm going to hit Control T here and go to Open, go to my assets. So I ended up downloading the Supreme logo here and casted it across. It looked cool, but I ended up making it more of like a square render. So I went in Photoshop and just stacked the Supreme logo to make it look better. So you can do that if you want, or you can just stick with the black and white Supreme logo. Both look great. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that. And off the bat, it already does look really cool, like something Supreme would do. But to make the projection work, we're actually going to use the camera output. So we're going to do that. And now wherever the camera is looking, see that? Looks really trippy, but that's because we are the camera. In this case, we are now the camera. So what you can do now is go from repeat to clip, so we just get one. And then you can use the mapping node to scale it up. Now this is one way to do projections. There's another way to do it with unwrapping them with project from view, but because we already have a UV to use the wooden material, as far as I'm aware, you can't use two separate UVs on one object. So I had to resort to the camera, and I mean, it did exactly what I needed it to do, so I'm not going to complain. This is done. Now we have this really cool projection. So now that we're here, what we can do now is add an HDRI. So the way we can do that is just go to the, actually, first off, go to Polyhaven and Assets, HDRIs. In this case, just pick anything you want. I would encourage you to maybe use one of these skies or maybe something with some contrast. I don't remember which one I used, but if I go to my Assets folder, we can try to hypothesize which one I used. Probably this mildly cloudy looking one. Nope, definitely didn't use that one. Maybe the sky. Try to get one that's not so insane. I mean, I'm not happy with any of them. All right, so let's go ahead and find a cloudy sky that will make this look awesome. Basically, I'm looking at this like which ones have a little bit of an interesting look, but not. I like this one right here. So we're going to download it. All right, so now that I have it downloaded, right here, he's looking a little better. So we'll use him as support lighting, and then we'll go ahead and get in a camera. Sorry, a light. And we'll use a area light. Hit G, move it up, hit R twice to kind of rotate it. And then we'll bring up the strength of like 300, bring that radius in, then bring it back out a little bit. And that's pretty much the whole thing. We can go ahead and add in some very high contrast on that and render it. And again, much like a lot of these tutorials, definitely would need some tweaking and sort of personal preference here on, my cat's jingling around, some personal preference on like how you would like the lighting to look. I would change it, but you kind of get the idea. I would say go ahead and approach it with whatever lighting process you like. But this is the project, how I did the projections, the rigid bodies, all that fun stuff. It's very simple, but really fun, effective stuff. So with that being said, thank you for watching. I really appreciate you supporting me here on Patreon, and we got another one of these coming tomorrow.